Here's an RV lesson I just learned. It's taken long enough to figure it out. I have what they call a macerator pump, and that allows me, when I'm boondocking, to hook that up to my waste line, and it macerates waste out of my black tank, and I can pump it up into the waste tank, the tote I have that fits in the back of my pickup truck, and I can go dump. And I went to do that today, as I've done every couple of weeks for the past several years, and I could not do it. And what I first thought was the pump had failed. It just wouldn't turn on. And I would walk you through all the troubleshooting I did, but well, I will walk you through it. This is typically how you figure stuff out. So I wasn't getting any power, so the pump has one of those cigarette lighter attachments you plug into a 12-volt cigarette lighter attachment. And for years, I've been plugging it into my Energy Apex power station. And it's almost 5 years old, so it was working great for that, but it wasn't working great for the rest of the things because the battery had worn down. It's not charging it just wasn't really doing the full-time job that I wanted. So I wanted to replace it. So I went and got an EcoFlow, and I gave the old Energy Apex to a friend that has a macerator pump that's constantly having trouble. Got to get it going, and it works great. So this time I plug it into my new EcoFlow and it wouldn't work. So I'm checking if you take apart the little 12-volt plug, there's a fuse in there. I checked that, the fuse was okay. Then I bought a 120 volt AC to DC cigarette lighter adapter that you can plug in, and that wasn't working either. And I don't know that that's ever really worked for me. And I'm like, neither of these things are working, and I was going to say, well, I'm going to have to go to RV Lifestyles and buy a new pump. And I was about to do that, and something made me think, let's plug it. I took the pump out, and I said, let me just plug it into the cigarette lighter adapter in the car. And it worked. It just fired right up. And I'm like, why would it work in the car and nowhere else? Then I started to think, why don't I look on the label of, this is really important, this is key. And I'm glad I kind of knew this, but this is where it's really important. I looked on the label that's attached to the pump where it says it's 12 watts, right? All cigarette lighter adapter devices are 12 watts. But I looked to see how many amps it was, and it said 12 amps. Then I looked on my EcoFlow, and it was like 8 amps or 10. Maybe it was 10. Then I looked on, it was either 8 or 10, but it was less than 12. Then I looked on the adapter that plugs into AC, and that was 10. So neither of those things, they were the right wattage, but it wasn't the right amperage to run the pump. But my old Energy Apex wasn't. So I didn't have the Apex anymore because I gave it away, but I looked up the specs. It was 15 amps, the output. So no wonder it works so well. So in the meantime, so I went and I ordered a converter that is 15 amps. It was like $23. It's not going to get here for a couple of weeks. But I called RV Lifestyles. They're always saving me. And they have a 10-foot extension for the pump. So you can, in the one end of the extension, you plug the cigarette lighter adapter. There's a female socket. You plug it into there, and it gives you an extra 10 feet. And I can pull the truck like right next to the pump, and that'll work. That'll solve my problem. But this is a pretty typical RV lifestyle. It's not a coincidence that the name of the place I'm going to save me is called RV Lifestyles. But it's a thing that happens frequently, and every time something like this happens, you learn a little bit. And I had, half a thought of this in my head, because I noticed that the Energy Apex worked fine, but once when I tried to use my a smaller one that I have, I can't remember the brand name of it, but it's a smaller power station, much smaller than the Energy, but it had a 12 volt outlet on it, and it wouldn't work. And I remember thinking, well, it's probably because there are not enough amps in the small one. But it never occurred to me to really look closely at what I was replacing it with to make sure the 12 volt port put out at least the same amperage as the Energy Apex did. And I didn't do that, and I kind of blew it. So would I have changed my mind about buying that? Probably not. I'd probably just order the converter, because otherwise the EcoFlow is working great. It powers all my office stuff. So I'm looking at Dottie, and I realized I was giving somebody a ride. Cheryl and I were together in the truck yesterday. So Dottie's bed is in the back, and I just looked over and realized Dottie doesn't have her bed. She's sitting on the seat. She seems pretty happy though. So you notice we just went through Tyson Wells there, and we're gonna go all the way past Love's here, and that's where RV Lifestyles is. It's a pretty amazing business they have here. They have RV repairs and a big supply, the RV supplies. And what's to me the most remarkable thing about it is that consistently their prices meet or are better than Amazon. You would think in a little town, an RV place, you're going to pay a premium, and it's just not true at RV Lifestyles. And I haven't had an RV repaired there, but I've had friends that have, and universally they give it thumbs up. So it's nice to know that they're here. My propane heater I bought here, and one of the selling points on it was if there's a problem with your heater, they're authorized service. They service the heaters as well, and they can get parts, and so that's a big plus, especially since it's pretty much the only place I use. Quartzsite is the only place I use that separate propane heater. So here we are, coming up past Love's here. Come to a full stop. I'm looking over there, and there's a Subway at Love's, and I used to love Subway. And guys, tell me in the comments if you've had a similar experience to me. The last couple of years, I've been disappointed every time I buy a sandwich at Subway, because I feel like the bread has become dry and tasteless. And I don't know if that's something that's changed about me or something that's changed about Subway. But I used to think the best part of the sandwich was a nice, moist, flavorful bread, but that's not my experience anymore. And here we are at RV Lifestyles, and a good price on propane, $3.09 a gallon. I didn't see it that low all season last season, so pretty good. So we are here at RV Lifestyles. I'm going to go in and get that extension. When I get in, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Well, I did not get what I came for at RV Lifestyles. And it's yet another lesson to pay attention to not only volts, but amps. I went in there, and it was a 15-foot cord. It looked perfect. And I started talking to the guy before I paid for it about the problem that I ran into. And he said, he looked at he said, let's look at that package before you buy that. He said, this is only good for 5 amps. It doesn't have big enough wire gauge for the amps you want to put through it, so it wasn't going to work. And in the meantime, I think I mentioned I'm going to turn this around so you can see Tyson's well as I go back through here, because it's always kind of interesting. There's still pretty good amount of activity here. I lost my train of thought there. But what I could have done, I thought Cheryl's the one that I gave the old power station to. And she's right next to me, but she's not there. She's in town. And I thought the compartment that she had it in was locked, and it turns out it's not. I just called her and said, are you coming back home soon? She said, yeah. And then I told her what happened. She said, you could have just walked over there and got it. It's not locked. I'm like, oh, jeez. So I've already got on Amazon, and I purchased a 15 amp converter from 120 to 12 volt 15 amp, and that will absolutely work for $23. And it'll take almost 2 weeks, I think, to get here. But you know what? I probably won't have to do it again for 2 weeks, so I think I'll be good. It'll be close, because I really have to do it about every 2 weeks, so it'll be close, and I can always borrow back my my thing from Cheryl. So this is my I usually have a break between 12 and like 3 in the afternoon, and this is how I'm spending it. So you have to pay attention to appliances, not only wattage, but amperage. So just to summarize, every source I had except for the car was 10 amps or less. The pump requires 12 amps, and my former source, the power station that I gave to Cheryl, was 15 amps. So I'm replacing I did have a converter that was only, I think, 8 amps, so that's why that wasn't working, because when I bought that, it's way past the return window, so I can't return that. But I'll buy the proper one this time. I'll borrow back Cheryl's, the power station from Cheryl, run the pump, dump my tanks. So I sort of wasted a trip into town, but it's a good thing I chit-chatted with the guy and told him what was going on, because otherwise what would have happened is I would have gotten back there with that extension, and it probably would have, it probably would have blown the fuse in I think there's a fuse in the extension, and it would have blown that fuse. I mean, it was like 2.5 times the rating for that extension. So, but if I really wanted an extension, what I should have done is maybe gone to one of the solar places and bought like a 10 or 12 foot SAE. The SAE is a connector that is used in the system in the macerator pump, and I could have bought a SAE extension, which now that I think about it, I may even have one of those already. Wouldn't that be crazy? I may already have an SAE extension. Oh boy. Anyway, so I didn't waste any money today, other than a little bit of gas going into town for no good reason, and a little bit of time. So I'm back. I'm here. I'm back. So anyway, that is today's adventure, and I'm so confident that just going and getting that power station and hooking up and working, I'm so confident about that if it doesn't work and there's more to this story, I'll come back on, but I don't think there's going to be any more to this story today. One thing that I had to do that's absolutely thoroughly disgusting is because I had opened the black tank valve with the macerator pump on there, to take it off, I had to, of course, close the valve, but there's, a bunch of black tank yuck in there, right? That I had to put a bucket under, and, I filled half a bucket with raw sewage. So I have to be really careful driving to the dump station to dispose of that and rinse out the bucket. That won't be fun. And guess who's, I'm in the LTVA now. Look who's in front of me. That's Cheryl. That is Cheryl right in front of me. We're getting back at almost exactly the same time. Oh, the trials and tribulations of being a full-time Nomad RVer. But you know what? I've got a smile on my face. I had a problem, right, Dottie? Dottie and I figured it out, didn't we? We figured it out, Dottie. And we're coming back up to my camp, and back the truck up and get this thing done. If I don't have an add-on to this, I'll see you tomorrow. Well, I thought you want to know that it worked out. Everything worked. I have a full tote right now, and I am headed off to the Blue Boy dump station. And that should only, if there's no line, it'll just take a couple minutes. If there's a line, I'll flip on some music or some YouTube or something on my fancy radio console. Just putting it in reverse to make sure I put up the tailgate, because you don't want to do what I'm doing now with the tailgate down with the tote in there, because the tote will slide out, explode on the ground, and it'll be something pretty ugly. Because I have to go through this one. Check out this wash I have to go through. Here it is. I don't know if you're going to be able to see just how deep this wash is, but it's pretty gnarly. You can kind of hear stuff sliding around in the car there. That's because it's kind of steep. We got the differential lock on, so there's no slippage going up, and we'll turn that off. And we will head to the Blue Boy dump station, which is pretty close to where I camp. Just through these, this is another wash I'm going through, but it's pretty tiny. Pretty tiny. Then there's one more before the Blue Boy dump station. That's a tiny one as well. So amps, watts, You got a 12. You got any kind of device with one of those cigarette lighter things that you plug into power. You got to pay attention to how many amps it's going to draw. Because if you plug it into a power source that doesn't have enough amps, it won't run. You can be overpowered, like it only draws 12 amps, but the power station I was using has 15 amps, so it'll only draw the 12 amps that it needs. It's like it won't, the device won't push 15 amps out to a device, but it'll pull up to 15 amps. But it only needs 12, so we're good. What I almost did that I didn't really tell you about is, did I tell you this or not? I was just about to leave to buy a new pump at RV Lifestyles, which would have been a colossal waste of money because it wouldn't have worked. And there is no one here. One of the things you got to check out, though, is there a sign that says it's closed? Sometimes it's closed because it's full and needs to be pumped out. I'm going to make sure it's not closed. I do not see a closed sign on it. It's just there's nobody here. So this is going to be pretty quick, guys. Pretty darn quick. Well, that was disgusting as always. Doubly so when it's windy. It's always a little harder when it's windy. And you do have to, it's not as simple in these totes of just hooking it up and opening the valve. At the end, you got to kind of wrestle that tank to get it to drain. And that's not fun. It's not fun at all. And it's always a little stinky, no matter how careful you are. Remember what we're dealing with here. But I finished my last appointment at 1. The next one's at 3. So I've got about 40 minutes, and I have to be back to work here. But so I've got an empty black tank though, so that's always it's a good thing, right, Dottie? Dottie's looking a little warmer. We'll kick on a little AC for the Dottie dog. But boy, this is the worst job, I think, is taking care of your black tank is the worst job. But I still got a smile on my face. You know, it's okay. It's not horrible. You know, I could pay somebody to come out here every couple of weeks for, I think it's $60 and do it all for you. But there's a little sense of satisfaction. Little sense of satisfaction taking care of your own stuff like this. And I solved a problem. I not only solved an electrical problem, but I did so by educating myself. I have a macerator pump that operates at 12 watts and 12 amps. So I need a 12 watt power source that is at least 12 amps. It's nice to know the little cigarette light socket in the back seat of this truck operates at at least 12 watts. I bet it's a 15, but it operated at 12 just fine. And if it wasn't for that, I might not have solved the problem. Because that's what convinced me. It said, hey, there's nothing wrong with the pump. The pump runs, therefore there must be a problem with the power. And then that's when I started really thinking and coming up with a solution and an explanation. So I have a macerator pump that is 12 watts or 12 volts and 12 amps. I did look for a 12 amp converter, but they don't make one. There's 10s and 15s. 10 won't work, 15 will. And I made double sure that just because it's 15 amps doesn't mean it'll throw 15 amps into what you're trying to do. It'll draw up to 15 amps, and the draw is based on the appliance, and the appliance will only draw 12. So we're back. I gotta unload everything, and we're gonna be good. So I think this is twice that I've told you goodbye. You know me, I do this. Thanks for watching, I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow. There's the desert. There's hardly anybody out there.